Philozoopia.
What if the very blueprint for how we organize our societies was etched out thousands of years ago? Not just as, some grand ideal, but maybe as a chilling warning.
It's a powerful question, and it really gets to the heart of what we're doing today.
Exactly. We're doing a deep dive into Plato's Republic.
Yeah.
Our mission here is to explore his really profound ideas on political systems.
And see how they might sort of resonate or maybe clash sharply with the dynamics of power and, well, human nature that we're still grappling with across the world today.
Right. And our guide for this is carefully chosen excerpts from Plato The Republic, the Cambridge edition, translated by Griffith. It gives us a really solid base.
It does. It's a great foundation for tackling these, let's face it, complex and sometimes pretty startling ideas.
And we promise this isn't going to feel like dusty ancient history. We really want to give you a well-informed perspective, something that helps you maybe understand the headlines tomorrow a bit differently.
Yeah, expect some hopefully aha moments. We want to make this dense stuff feel relevant, maybe even relatable.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Plato's starting point. His vision for the perfect society, Kallipolis, which literally means the city of beauty.
And you can read the Republic in a couple of ways, really. Is it moral philosophy? Is it political philosophy?
But the goal seems clear, right? Collective happiness, avoiding oppression.
Definitely. That's the aim. And it immediately sets up this this fundamental tension between what's good for the individual and what's good for the society as a whole.
So how did he structure this ideal city? I mean, it sounds pretty radical from the outset.
Oh, it is. He proposed this very strict functional division of citizens, 3 distinct classes, each with a very specific role.
All designed for harmony, you mean?
Precisely. A perfectly ordered society. That was the vision.
All right, so building this Kallipolis from the ground up, who's at the base? What's their job?
Okay, so Plato starts with the producers. These are your farmers, your artisans, basically everyone focused on their specific craft, creating the things the city needs.
Simple enough. They make the stuff.
Pretty much. Their function is vital, though. You need that stable foundation of specialized work. Plato thought they should just stick to their jobs, generate the wealth and not get distracted by other things.
Okay, makes sense. And then protecting this foundation.
That's the guardians, the warriors. This is what Plato calls the spirited class. They're responsible for defense.
And they're different, right? Special training.
Very specific education, yes. And a communal lifestyle, which is key. Plato has this fascinating comparison. He says they need to be both gentle to their own people and spirited or fierce towards enemies. Like a well-bred dog is his analogy.
Gentle and spirited. That's an interesting balance.
Crucial, he thought, for them to be protectors without becoming tyrants themselves.
And then at the very top, the rulers.
The tiny elite, the philosopher-kings. According to Plato, these are the only ones truly fit to rule.
Why them specifically?
Because of their superior understanding, their discernment. He lists these essential qualities: a deep love of learning, truthfulness, self-discipline, courage, justice, good memory. The list goes on.
Wow, high bar.
Extremely high. And this leads to probably his most famous and radical idea. The ideal city only becomes possible if philosophers become kings, or kings philosophers.
Imagine that, a society run by people purely devoted to wisdom and truth.
It's a striking thought. But to make this work, Plato proposed some equally radical social structures, especially for those guardians we mentioned.
Like what?
Well, for starters, no private property for them beyond, the absolute bare essentials. They were to live in common barracks, eat together in mess halls.
Why no property?
To prevent corruption, basically, to make sure their loyalty was solely to the city, the state, not to getting rich or looking after their own stuff.
Okay, that's one big change. But there was more, wasn't there? Something even more surprising.
Oh, yes. And this is where it gets really challenging for modern readers. For the guardians, he proposed communal women and children.
Communal. Wait, what does that actually mean here?
It means no traditional private families for that class. He even suggested women should do the same jobs as men, including fighting, which was radical then. But the communal aspect was about breaking down family loyalties, again, to ensure loyalty to the state above all.
So children wouldn't know their biological parents.
Exactly. And he even included strict eugenic rules for reproduction. The idea was best men should have sex with the best women as often as possible to produce the best offspring for the city.
Wow. Okay. That's intense. Eugenics, communal families. It really changes your idea of personal identity.
Completely. And to keep all this together, to maintain this fragile utopia, Plato proposed something else controversial.
Which was?
Censorship. And even deception by the rulers.
Deception. But they're philosopher-kings, lovers of truth.
I know, it's a paradox, isn't it? But Plato argued rulers needed to control the stories, the myths told in the city, make sure the gods are always portrayed as good, unchanging.
So controlling the narrative?
Precisely. And here's the kicker. The direct quote is something like, "If anyone is entitled to tell lies, the rulers of the city are. They may do so for the benefit of the city."
For the benefit of the city. That's unsettling. A noble lie, essentially.
That's the concept, often called the noble lie, yes. It raises huge questions, obviously. Can a good society, Plato's ideal city, really be built on lies, even supposedly for the common good?
Yeah, how does Plato square that circle? How does this fit with his idea of justice? If the city's foundation involves deception, isn't it inherently unjust?
That's the challenge. For Plato, justice wasn't really about individual rights or truthfulness in the way we might think of it today. It was about order.
Order. How so?
Justice in the city, for him, meant each part doing its own job. Producers produce, guardians guard, rulers rule. No stepping on toes, no interference. When everything is in its proper place, functioning correctly, that is justice.
Okay, so it's about functional harmony.
Exactly. And this leads to the 4 cardinal virtues he identified. Wisdom, that's in the rulers. Courage, which he defined interestingly as the guardians preserving the right beliefs about what's to be feared.
Huh. Preserving belief.
Yeah. Then self-discipline, which is like an agreement, a harmony across the whole city about who should rule. And finally, justice itself, the principle that keeps everything in balance.
And he saw this reflected in the individual too, right? The justice in the soul idea.
Spot on. He believed the individual soul mirrors the city. You have the rational part, which should rule like the philosophers, the spirited part, like the guardians, which handles courage and righteous anger, and the desiring part, the appetites, like the producers, which should obey.
So a just person is someone whose internal city is well ordered.
Precisely. When reason rules, supported by spirit, keeping desires in check, that person is internally just. Plato says such a person is utterly reliable, wouldn't embezzle funds, betray friends, and so on.
Because their soul is in balance.
Right. Their inner constitution is sound.
And how do the philosopher kings get this special wisdom, this ability to rule? You mentioned the allegory of the cave.
Yes, the cave is crucial. It illustrates how most people perceive only shadows of reality. The philosopher is the one who escapes the cave, sees the real world, the forms, illuminated by the sun, which represents the form of the good.
So they see things as they truly are.
That's the idea. And for Plato, education isn't about stuffing knowledge into people's heads. It's about turning the soul around, redirecting it from darkness towards the light, towards truth.
That's a powerful image for education.
Yeah.
Now, we have to address the criticism, right? Callipolis sounds orderly, maybe, but also quite authoritarian.
Absolutely. It's crucial to bring this up. The structure, the censorship, the eugenics, it's led to some very strong critiques. Most famously, perhaps, Karl Popper in his book The Open Society and Its Enemies.
What did Popper say?
He didn't mince words. He called the Republic a prescient charter for fascism. He saw Plato's ideal state as closed, hierarchical, anti-individualistic, essentially, the blueprint for totalitarian regimes.
Wow. A charter for fascism. That's a heavy charge against Plato.
It is. And it's shaped a lot of how people view the Republic today. It's a perspective you really need to consider when evaluating Plato's utopia. What's the cost of that perfect order he envisioned?
So we've seen the ideal, Callipolis, and the controversy around it. But Plato didn't think even this perfect city would last forever, did he?
No, quite the opposite. He believed that even the best state is prone to decay, to degenerate into progressively worse forms of government.
And each form has a corresponding type of person.
Right, exactly. A dominant character type that reflects the values of that regime. This cycle of decline is, I think, one of the most fascinating and perhaps chilling parts of the Republic.
Okay, so where does the decline start? What's the first step down from the ideal?
It begins with timocracy. Rule by honor. This happens, Plato says, when the ruling class starts neglecting that crucial education in music and literature, the things that cultivate reason.
They focus on other things.
They start valuing the spirited qualities more. Military prowess, honor, ambition. Think Sparta, maybe, as a rough historical comparison people sometimes make. This leads to a love of victory and honor, but also, crucially, the beginnings of private wealth accumulation among the rulers.
So wealth starts creeping in, corrupting the philosopher-king ideal.
Exactly. And that love of wealth paves the way for the next stage, oligarchy, ruled by the wealthy.
How does that transition happen?
It's driven by that growing desire for gold. Eventually, they establish formal wealth qualifications for holding power. You have to own property of a certain value to be in charge.
So it's explicitly ruled by the rich.
Yes. And Plato makes this brilliant observation here. He says such a city isn't one city, but two, cities upon cities. One city of the rich and one city of the poor, constantly plotting against each other.
That sounds unstable.
Very. It creates deep internal divisions, makes the city weak in war because the rich fear arming the poor. And it also creates this class of people Plato calls drones.
Drones. Like bees?
Sort of. He means people who just consume wealth without producing anything. Spendthrifts, idlers, maybe some criminals. Think of, I don't know, maybe trust fund babies in today's terms, perhaps. People living off inherited wealth without contributing.
Okay, so oligarchy is unstable, divided, and creates these drones. Where does it go from there?
Well, according to Plato, the resentment of the poor, often stirred up by these very drones who've lost their own fortunes, eventually boils over. This leads to democracy.
Democracy. We usually think of democracy as a good thing.
Plato didn't see it that way, not in the form it took after oligarchy. He saw it as rule by, well, extreme freedom, anarchy almost.
Extreme freedom.
Yeah. When the poor overthrow the oligarchs, they establish a system where freedom is the highest value. Power is distributed, often by lot. Equality is granted, as Plato puts it, to equals and unequals alike.
So no standards, basically. Anything goes.
That's his critique. The individual democratic person mirrors this. They give equal status to all their desires, necessary ones like eating, but also unnecessary ones like luxury or fleeting whims. Life becomes, in his words, anarchic, colorful, driven by the impulse of the moment.
So for Plato, too much freedom is actually a problem.
A huge problem. It raises that question, doesn't it? What happens when you prioritize absolute freedom above all else when every desire is considered equally valid?
And where does that lead, according to Plato? This feels like it's heading somewhere dark.
It is. And here's the chilling paradox Plato presents. The harshest and most complete slavery arises, he says, from the most extreme freedom.
Oh, freedom leads to slavery.
He argues that the insatiable desire for freedom in a democracy leads to chaos and disorder. The society becomes unable to tolerate any authority. And out of this chaos, a strongman figure emerges.
The tyrant.
Yes, the final stage. Tyranny. The tyrant often starts as a champion of the people, promising to restore order, cancel debts, redistribute land.
It's familiar sometimes.
Doesn't it? But once in power, he eliminates rivals, purges the city of its best and bravest citizens, anyone who might challenge him. He surrounds himself with a bodyguard, often made up of freed slaves or foreign mercenaries who owe loyalty only to him.
A complete takeover.
Total control, total oppression. And Plato's conclusion is stark. There is no unhappier city than the one ruled by a tyrant, and no happier city than the one ruled by a king, meaning the philosopher-king of his ideal state. It's a truly bleak end to the cycle.
Wow, that's quite a journey down from the ideal city to the depths of tyranny.
It really is. And stepping back, you see, Plato isn't just describing abstract political systems. He's really talking about human nature, about tendencies that exist within all of us and within all societies.
He says the characters of people in the city tip the scale, right? It's about collective psychology almost.
Exactly. It highlights how the dominant values and character traits in a population can literally shape or reshape its political destiny. Individual virtues and vices have collective consequences.
So how should we, use this today? How should listeners think about this cycle?
Well, I think it's crucial to apply critical thinking here. Plato's cycle gives us a really powerful framework, a lens, for analyzing political changes, maybe identifying certain patterns or pressures we see throughout history or even in the world around us now.
But it's not about saying, oh, this country is an oligarchy or that country is heading for tyranny.
Right.
Not direct point-by-point comparisons.
No, exactly. That would be too simplistic and probably miss the point. It's more about understanding the underlying dynamics Plato identified, that tension between freedom and order, for instance, or the corrupting influence of wealth on power, or how unchecked populism might lead to authoritarianism. These are patterns.
Understanding the patterns, not making exact predictions.
Right. And it brings us back to that idea of the rulers, too. Remember, the philosopher-kings had to be compelled to rule. They didn't want power for its own sake.
They saw it as a duty, an unavoidable burden.
Yes, unlike those who actively seek power for personal gain. And Plato poses this really pointed question towards the end. What happens to a society if its leaders are, in his words, beggars, people who are starved of good things in their own lives going into public life because they believe that the good is something to be taken from there as plunder?
That's a very challenging thought about the motivations of some power seekers.
It really is. Makes you think about what qualities we should actually look for in leaders.
So quite a journey today. We've gone from Plato's ideal city, Callipolis, with its philosopher-kings and strange social structures,
Down through his predictions of decay, timocracy, oligarchy, democracy.
and landing at the grim reality of tyranny, a full cycle of political thought from, what, 2,400 years ago?
It still feels disturbingly relevant in places.
It really does. Which leads to a final thought for you, our listeners.
If it's true that knowledge is most valuable when understood and applied, how might understanding Plato's ancient political blueprints, his warnings and ideals, change the way you interpret the headlines tomorrow?
Something to ponder. The power of these foundational ideas is undeniable, and there's always value in continuing to deep dive into texts like The Republic to better understand our world. Thanks for joining us on this exploration.
Philozoopia.